Barney, tell us about this particular car and why are you holding a small thing in your hands again, Barney?
Well, I think lots of people have one of those, but very few people have the real thing, especially one as lovely and unmolested as this. Now, the lovely thing, I've known this car since it was brand new. The first owner lived in Germany and bought it, if you like, one of the early grey imports, and realised at the time you could buy it considerably cheaper in Deutschmarks than you could sterling at the time.
So he bought a right-hand drive then?
Yeah, so he was quite advanced for his time and sussed grey importing. What I remember, the saving was £13,000.
And that was when?
Sorry, 13,000 Deutschmarks, which I can't work out the sterling amount, but it was a terrific amount of money, thousands of pounds. He then brought the car back to the UK. He owned it for some time, but it was garaged the entire time he owned it. It was absolute pride and joy. And I bought it off him probably 12 years ago with only 12,000 miles on the clock. So it's rather nice that you've known it, that I've known the car from new. Now, every single owner that's bought the car since then has been involved with me, and so I've known every owner and where the car's been, how it's been cared for, and I think that says a lot, and it just gives you peace of mind to know it hasn't been abused and it hasn't been in the wrong hands and such like. Firstly started with this, the body shell is absolutely original, totally 100% accident free, and has suffered from none of the normal corrosion that M6s suffer from. The front wings are absolutely perfect, both along the tops where they sometimes go rippling, and on the fronts, there in front of the front wing, which a lot of you will have seen, I'm sure, this Achilles heel there. All the jacking points and jacking pads underneath the front wings there, where they go into the front floors, are absolutely superb. The car, before it leaves here, what we will do is it will have a full clean up on the underside, and we'll absolutely fill every cavity with wax oil to ensure that the shell is protected absolutely long term. Mechanically, the car has had all the age-related maintenance done to it over the years, so everything that has been needed has been done. So it's sort of had a continual program, if you like, of preventive maintenance. That includes things like water hoses, fuel hoses, coolant hoses, everything from brake calipers rebuilt. The car had a new clutch recently. Many of the hydraulics have been replaced. So all the things that can make classic car ownership a bit of a nuisance and a pain have been eliminated on this car. Basically because I've been advising people what to do with it over the years. So, and even a car as superb as this, if it fell into the wrong hands, within 2 to 3 years it could deteriorate very quickly. If the body shell is not protected and looked after, the rust will set in and it will start to damage them. I think the thing is, mechanically with these cars, M5s and M6s, the maintenance isn't that costly if it's done progressively when it's needed, bit by bit. So when it comes to a specialist like myself and we go through the car and we say this year we do X, Y and Z, it's not that expensive. But what happened, as it does with many classic cars, they go through a period of time where they're owned by people who can't afford that maintenance, and it builds up. So they're being told to do things, do that, eliminate that, but they can't afford it, and it builds up and builds up and builds up. And of course what happens is ultimately you end up one day with a very big bill. Whereas this car has never fallen into those hands. It's always been drip-fed cash each year to keep it in tip-top. So it drives superbly. The only thing on this car that is not original, and a few people watching this may know this, the first M6s came with a TRX wheel that was a split rim. They were recalled by BMW in 1986. And every car with split rims had the same wheel fitted, but they were one-piece wheel. And that was because they had endless leaking problems with air. So that is the only thing that's been changed. It's been recalled and the split rims went and on to one-piece TRX metric alloys. Not the best tyre in the world. A lot of people probably would want to fit a 17-inch Alpina wheel to the car. So I think the M6 was, and the 635, it was an absolute iconic flagship coupe for BMW at the time. I think the 8 was a bit tainted from the word go, in the fact it was late coming out. If anything, we owe the birth of the Highline M6 and 635 to the fact that the 8 was late appearing. Very expensive to run, whereas actually an M6 isn't too expensive to run. They are very, very loved, but I think a lot of that, again, it comes down to usability. This is a car that, you know, with proper care can be used daily. And if you wanted to drive off to the south of France on this today, I know it would get you there and get you back, and it would be a joyful experience. Whereas I think classic cars before there, people tended to be a bit worried about long runs and they went to the odd club do. But 635s, M6s are a very, very, very usable prospect. BMW historically have always given people performance but with amazing usability. So you could pop the kids in the back of this and head off on holiday in it, but likewise on the right road late at night you could have some real fun in it. BMW's product has always been about usability. Even if you look at something like the E30 M3, you know, which was absolutely race developed from the word go, it's still a totally usable road car. Well, under here we have the best bit of an M6, the fantastic M88, 3.5 litre, 24 valve twin cam, 286 horsepower, which I think should be sort of remembered how impressive that was for the time. Individual butterfly housings with Motronic. The engine is enormously torquey. I mean, will pull from 1500 RPM in top. But likewise, above 4000 the thing really picks up and is very, very exciting. Totally unidiosyncratic, very, very reliable. I think the only thing to possibly mention is, I'm sure some of you have sort of seen conversations regarding timing chains on these cars. This engine's covered 73,000 miles, which of course, knowing it from you, we know to be 100% correct. Personally, my feeling is with a M88, whether it be M5 or M6, timing chain should be replaced at around the 100,000 mile mark. Being a non-cat car, it's a simplex chain, single road chain. Then all the normal sort of preventive maintenance again should be done under here. You know, an M6, the key is to get a good body shell. That will always be the expensive area to sort out. The rest of it is nuts and bolts. But you do want to make sure, like a car like this, that, for instance, hoses have been replaced, kept up to date with, and that it's not going to let you down. It is usable. This car's got air conditioning, which is, due to age, can be a bit of an Achilles heel. But again, this car's had new condenser, receiver dryer, etc. So it's totally reliable. 3.5 litre, 286 horsepower, which I think, you know, anybody will understand was staggering for the time out of a road engine. It's not, you know, that far before that we were talking sort of race car performance out of engines of that. So, yeah, they were all hand built by BMW Motorsport. So some people believe the block to originate from sort of M49 of the from the race car. But it doesn't. It was first seen in the M1 in its M88 form, but dry sump in the M1, and this is wet sump. But no, very special. But also, you know, unidiosyncratic, just totally reliable and bomb-proof. The car's probably around the 1400 kilo mark, whereas you're talking 2000 kilos on a modern M6. I mean, I think people are staggered when they get in these cars at how they do perform. They assume it's a 1980s classic car, and I think they are in awe of how quick and torquey and how usable these things are. This M6 was originally spec'd with cloth, the first owner being a real enthusiast, and he didn't like the idea of slippery leather in a proper big front engine GT car. I actually agree with him, good idea. The differences from an M6 and a 635, we've covered the M88 engine and its butterfly housings under the bonnet. We also had a ZF gearbox designed specifically for the M6 and the E28 M5 with sports ratios, still with an overdrive top though. Limited slip differential, that was standard on all M6s. Motorsport suspension, incorporating Bilsteins and Motorsport springs, Motorsport roll bars of bigger diameter, and bigger front brakes as well. Battery was moved to the boot for weight distribution and obviously to make room for the rather bigger M88 engine in the front.